Friends, let me tell you about something that happened out in Sweetwater, Texas, back in 1883. Now, I know what you're thinking. Another tale about cowboys and cattle drives. But this one's different. This is about a man who was drowning on dry land and a woman who saw water where everyone else saw dust. Caleb Hart was what we used to call land poor, owned 600 acres but couldn't scrape together $6. His parents had passed from the fever, left him with more debt than cattle. Most folks figured he'd be selling to the bank within the year. That's when he did something desperate, something men didn't talk about much in polite company. He sent away for a bride. Put an advertisement in the papers back east, honest as daylight about his troubles. And the woman who answered? Well, she'd change everything. Not with beauty or charm or any of those things the stories usually tell, but with ledgers, water rights, and a spine straighter than a fence post. The depot platform shook under Caleb's boots as the morning train pulled in, black smoke rising into the already hot Texas sky. 5:47 by his father's pocket watch, the one thing of value the creditors hadn't touched. He'd been practicing his greeting since before dawn, running the words through his mind while he fed the horses, checked the water troughs that were running lower every day. Miss Moore, welcome to Texas. Simple, dignified, not too familiar, not too cold. The letter in his vest pocket had gone soft from handling. He knew each word by heart. She'd used precise penmanship, every letter formed careful-like. Mr. Hart, I am a plain woman seeking a practical arrangement. I can keep books and work without complaint. I do not require romance or promises that cannot be kept. 43 words that stood apart from all the others who'd answered his advertisement. No mention of destiny or true love, no claims about beauty or delicate accomplishments. Just straight talk from someone who understood that life out here wasn't about fairy tales. Steam hissed, and passengers began stepping down. A drummer with his sample cases, 2 ranch hands coming back from Fort Worth, a family with small children fussing in the heat. Caleb searched for someone matching what he'd pictured. Maybe shoulders bent from disappointment, eyes that didn't meet anyone's direct. Then he saw her. She stood on the top step of the passenger car, surveying the platform like she was reading a map. Plain brown traveling dress, nothing fancy. Hair pulled back severe in a bun that the journey had loosened some. But it was how she held herself that made him stare. Straight as a measuring rod, chin level, like she was ready for whatever came next. Their eyes met across the crowded platform. She didn't smile or look away bashful-like. Instead, she studied him for a long moment, seeming to check him against some list in her mind. Then, she came down those steps with purpose, walking straight toward him while other folks milled about looking for their people. Mr. Hart? Her voice carried clear despite the noise. I'm Eliza Moore. She put out her hand, not waiting for him to offer his, not standing there expecting him to make the first move, just thrust it out like a man would, ready to shake on a deal. He took it, feeling calluses that matched his own. Her grip was firm, no nonsense about it. Miss Moore, welcome to... Where's your wagon? She cut through his stammering gentle-like but firm. I'd like to get started before the heat gets worse. Started. Like she was here for a job, not a marriage. Which Caleb supposed was exactly what she'd written. Over here! He reached for her luggage, expecting the multiple bags his mother had always traveled with when she was alive. But there was just one trunk, though when he lifted it, the weight caught him off guard. Books, from the feel of it. This all? Everything necessary. He loaded the trunk while she climbed onto the wagon seat without waiting for help. She'd already solved that problem by not making it one. As he guided the horses out of town, she pulled a small notebook from her carpet bag. I've prepared some questions about your operation. Acreage, water rights, livestock count. I hope you don't mind discussing business during the journey. Don't mind at all. 20 miles of ranch road stretched ahead. She was already writing notes, that pencil moving steady across the page. When she looked up, her eyes were gray as winter clouds. Your advertisement mentioned the ranch was struggling. I need to know exactly how bad it is. Just like that, no dancing around the hard truth. Bad enough I couldn't afford a hired hand this year. Lost 30 head to something I can't figure. Creek's been running foul, grass dying in the north pasture. She made more notes, quick and sure. When did the cattle start dying? October last. And the creek? Started changing color maybe September. She closed her notebook with a snap that sounded final. Mr. Hart, someone's poisoning your water. Probably from upstream. We'll need to investigate immediately. The certainty in her voice made him pull up the horses. How could you know that from what little I've told you? Because you're still here. She looked at him direct, those gray eyes steady as bedrock. A man losing what you've lost to disease or drought would have sold out or given up. You're still fighting, which means you know in your bones something's wrong, even if you can't name it yet. She turned to look at his land spreading out before them, the dying cottonwoods along the creek telling their own story. Also, she added, pulling another paper from her bag, I received a letter posted from the Henderson place after they supposedly left. Someone's living on that abandoned land upstream, Mr. Hart, and they wanted me to come there instead of here. The morning sun beat down hot on his neck, but Caleb felt cold clear through. They wrote to you? Claiming to need a wife for a son. But Mr. Henderson never had a son, did he? No, he didn't. She folded the letter careful and put it away. Then we have our first piece of evidence. Someone's using his land for something worth hiding. Something worth trying to acquire a mail-order bride to keep quiet about it. The horses stamped restless in the heat. Caleb's mind raced through the implications. Someone at the Henderson place, poisoning his water, trying to intercept his bride. They wanted you specifically? They wanted any woman desperate enough to come. She adjusted her bonnet against the climbing sun, matter-of-fact about the whole thing. Lucky for you, I know the difference between a real opportunity and a trap. Your advertisement was honest. Theirs smelled of deceit. How? Too many promises. When folks promise too much, they're usually hiding something worse. She looked at him sideways, almost smiling. You promised nothing except work and shelter. That's how I knew you were telling the truth. They rode on toward his ranch. Their ranch, he supposed now, while she peppered him with questions about water tables and mineral rights and things he'd never thought to wonder about. And all the while, Caleb kept thinking about that letter from the Henderson place, about someone up there wanting to collect mail-order brides. Miss Moore, he said as his ranch came into view, small and struggling in the morning light, what do you think they really wanted? She was quiet for a moment, studying his two-room house, the barn that needed paint, the corrals that wanted mending. Widows, Mr. Hart. They were shopping for widows. After all, a widow can't testify against her late husband's business partners under Texas law. The cold feeling in his gut turned to ice. They hadn't just wanted his land. They'd wanted him dead, and his wife legally silenced. Eliza Moore turned those steady gray eyes on him once more. But they made one mistake. They didn't count on me choosing you instead, or on us fighting back, together. Together. The word hung between them in the hot morning air, heavy with possibility and danger both. Before we continue, please leave a like and subscribe. Let me know which city you're watching from. Now, let's get back to the story. The North Pasture told its story in bleached bones and dead grass that crunched under their boots like broken glass. Caleb watched Eliza crouch beside a cattle skull, the hem of her dress dragging in the alkaline dust. She ran her finger along the white crust that ringed what used to be grazing land, then touched it to the tip of her tongue before he could warn her off. Mineral salts, she spat into the dirt. How long since this one died? April, maybe early May? She stood, scanning the fence line with those calculating eyes. The morning sun was climbing higher, making her squint. 30 head should have been grazing here. Now there was nothing but scattered bones and grass that had turned the color of old newspaper. Show me where you moved the survivors. They walked the boundary, her skirt catching on the barbed wire he'd patched with baling twine and prayers. She didn't complain, just unhitched herself and kept moving. Every few yards, she'd stop to examine his repairs, some fresh from yesterday's desperate preparation for her arrival, others weathered from months of making do. At the eastern corner where the fence met the creek, she pulled up a clump of what should have been sweetgrass. The roots came away white with crystalline deposits that sparkled in the harsh light. This wasn't here last year? Grass was belly-high to a horse last summer. Cattle were getting fat just looking at it. She made that humming sound in her throat. He was already learning it meant she was thinking hard. Without asking permission, she started hiking upstream along the creek bank. Her notebook came out again, pencil scratching as she walked. The creek ran orange-red over rocks stained black as coal. The smell hit them when the wind shifted, sulfur and something metallic, like old pennies left in the rain. There, she pointed to where the discoloration was strongest. See how it fans out from that narrow point? Whatever's poisoning your water enters right there. She knelt again, pulling out her handkerchief to dip in the fouled water. The white cloth came up streaked rust orange with black specks. Iron sulfide, copper compounds. She studied the stained cloth like it was a map. They're mining up there, Mr. Hart, running their tailings straight into your water. Mining? The word felt foreign in his mouth. There's nothing worth digging for in these parts. Someone disagrees. She wrung out the handkerchief, watching the poisoned water drip back into the creek. And they're willing to kill your cattle to keep it secret. 4 a.m, and yellow lamplight already spilled from the barn door. Caleb stood in his doorway, breath fogging in the pre-dawn cold. His body knew the time without checking. Years of rising before sunup had trained him better than any rooster. But Eliza had beaten him to it. The frozen grass crunched under his boots as he crossed the yard. Inside the barn, he found her crouched beside his milk cow, that little notebook balanced on one knee while her pencil scratched steady across the page. Couldn't sleep? His voice came out rough with mourning. Slept fine. 3 hours is plenty. She didn't look up from her counting. You have 14 head unaccounted for. How do you figure that? Earmarks. She stood, brushing straw from her skirt. You've got 43 distinct patterns in this barn and the near corral. Your last tax filing claimed 29 head. She showed him the notebook. Neat columns of numbers, each with a sketch of an ear pattern beside it. The lamplight made the pages glow amber. These 8 calves aren't branded yet. Legal ownership, but no proof. The other 6, she flipped a page. Strays, probably. Wandered down from the Henderson place before the poisoning started. Caleb took the notebook, squinting at her precise handwriting. She'd mapped out his entire operation in 3 hours of darkness. Where'd you learn to read earmarks? Books. The Cattleman's Guide to Texas Livestock Law, 1879 edition. She took the notebook back. Coffee? The subject changed through him. What? Coffee. You have beans in a grinder. I'll make some while you explain why you've been selling to Hutchinson at $3 below market price. How do you know what Hutchinson pays? Receipt on your kitchen table. 40 head at $12 per. Fort Worth market price is $15. She was already walking toward the house, leaving him standing in his own barn like a stranger. In the kitchen, she worked the coffee grinder with mechanical precision. The beans crackled and split under the iron teeth, filling the cold room with their bitter perfume. Hutchinson's the only buyer comes out here, Caleb said finally. Because you let him be. She dumped the grounds into the pot. 3 other buyers in Sweetwater, 4 in Abilene. Abilene's 60 miles. $3 times 40 head is $120. Subtract 20 for supplies and time getting there, still leaves you ahead by 100. The coffee pot went on the stove. She adjusted the damper without asking, already having figured out its temperament. While water heated, she pulled out a proper ledger from somewhere. Where had she been keeping all these books? Your system, she tapped his scattered papers. My system. Her finger moved to her neat columns. We transfer everything this morning. The cattle need moving to the south pasture. They can wait an hour. This can't. The coffee started as low burble. She poured 2 cups, black and strong enough to float horseshoes. Set one in front of him and returned to her seat. The ledger opened between them like a map to somewhere better. Walk me through your year. Start with January. They worked as the sun climbed, her questions pulling memories from him he didn't know he'd kept. How many calves born? How many died? Which neighbors bought bulls? Which sold off breeding stock? The pattern of losses he'd never seen as a pattern until she laid it out in ink. Here. She turned the ledger toward him. See it now? The numbers told their story in her careful hand. Every loss spiked after heavy rain. Every heavy rain came 2 days after what she'd marked as upstream activity in the margin. They're dumping their worst runoff before storms, letting rain wash away the evidence, while your cattle drink concentrated poison. She pulled out another paper, a map she'd drawn of his land sometime between last night and this morning. You need to fence off the creek today. Haul water from the well until we solve this. We? She looked at him over her coffee cup, those gray eyes steady as stone. I didn't come here to watch you fail, Mr. Hart. Bad for my investment. Investment? That what you're calling this? What would you call it? Marriage seemed too fancy for what they had. Partnership too cold. But investment, maybe that was honest enough for now. The fence posts are in the barn, he said. Wire, too. Good, we'll start after breakfast. She rose, already moving to the stove. Biscuits and gravy quick enough? You cook? The look she gave him could have frosted windows in July. I do whatever needs doing, Mr. Hart. That's what practical means. She pulled down his mother's cast-iron skillet like she'd been cooking here for years. The ease of it, the assumption of belonging should have bothered him. Instead, he found himself watching her work, humming something tuneless while bacon fat melted in the pan. When breakfast was ready, biscuits golden as wheat, gravy thick with bits of salt pork, they ate without talking. Just 2 people fueling up for hard labor ahead. Your advertisement, she said sudden-like, setting down her fork. You wrote, partner, not princess. You meant that? Every word. Good. She stood, already reaching for her bonnet. Because partners split work by ability, not by what folks expect. That sits right with you? Sits fine. Then let's build fence. They worked through the morning heat, setting posts along the creek line. She held while he hammered, passed wire without being asked, spotted problems before they became mistakes. The sun climbed higher, sweat soaking through his shirt and making her dress cling to her back. By noon, they had a 1/4 mile done. Caleb called for a water break, headed for the canteen in the wagon. She followed, pulling off her bonnet to wipe her forehead with her sleeve. Her hair had come partially unpinned, damp strands sticking to her neck. We'll need help for the rest, she said, calculating the remaining distance. How many neighbors you trust? To help? Maybe 3, 4? To help and keep quiet about why we're fencing off water? That number dropped considerable. 2, maybe. The Wilsons and who else? The Youngs, Ben and Clara. Good folks, been here since before the war. Tomorrow, then, we'll ride to both, explain the situation. She was already planning, always planning. If they've had losses too, they'll help. The way she said, we'll ride, like it was natural as breathing, when had she become part of every calculation? You've done this before, he said. Ranch work. I've done what needed doing before. That's not the same thing. Looks the same from here. She turned to face him full on then, something shifting in her expression like clouds crossing the sun. Your advertisement, Mr. Hart. Why did you write it that way? No promises, no pretty words. The question caught him sideways. Didn't see the point in lying. 22 other men who wrote me did. Promised me silk dresses and easy living. She picked up the hammer again. You promised nothing except honesty and work. Not much of a bargain. Better than lies wrapped in ribbons. She hefted a fence post. Come on, 3 more hours of light. We can get another 1/4 mile if we push. They pushed. When darkness finally forced them to stop, Caleb's hands were raw even through the calluses built up over years. Eliza's had to be worse, but she didn't mention it. Back at the house, she had those ledgers out again, adding the day's work to her endless columns. The lamplight caught the side of her face, showing lines of exhaustion she wouldn't admit to. 16 posts at 30 cents each. Wire, about $40 worth. Labor? Don't count labor, we did it ourselves. She looked up sharp. Everything counts, Mr. Hart. How else will you know if you're gaining or losing? We didn't pay for labor. Doesn't mean it has no value. She wrote something down. Your time, my time, both worth something, even to each other. The way she said it, matter of fact but with weight behind it, made him stop in the doorway. Supper in an hour, she said without looking up. Check the livestock while they're still light. And Caleb? First time she'd used his given name. It stopped him cold. That letter from Henderson's place? It wasn't the only one. She pulled another envelope from her ledger. This came while you were in the barn this morning. Someone slipped it under the door. He took it, recognized the same crude handwriting. Water rights belong to first claim. Stay away from Henderson land. They're watching us, Eliza said quiet. They know I'm here now. Caleb looked out the window toward the north, toward Henderson's abandoned ranch. No lights visible, but that didn't mean anything. Are you scared? No, she went back to her ledgers. But I'm starting to think they should be. The certainty in her voice raised the hair on his neck. This woman who'd appeared on his doorstep with her trunk full of books and her head full of plans, what else was she capable of? Eliza, he started. Check the livestock, she said again. We have an early start tomorrow. Outside, the evening had gone purple with coming night. Caleb did as she asked, checking each animal, but his mind kept circling back to that letter. First claim on water rights. But his family had been here 15 years, long before Henderson even showed up. Unless someone had filed papers he didn't know about. Unless someone had been planning this longer than he'd thought. He turned back toward the house, saw Eliza silhouetted in the window, bent over her work. She'd been here exactly 1 day, and already his life had turned inside out. When he came back in, she had another map spread on the table. This one showed Henderson's land in detail. Buildings, water sources, even elevation marks. Where did you get this? Drew it from memory. My father kept maps of every property Copper Crown ever touched. She looked up at him, and in the lamplight, her eyes looked almost silver. Did I mention that name before? Copper Crown Company? No. Then I should probably tell you. They're the ones who destroyed my father. And unless I'm wrong, they're the ones poisoning your water. She traced a line on the map with her finger. The question is, what are they really mining up there? Because it's not copper, Mr. Hart. The geology's all wrong for copper. The pick handle turned slick with sweat and blood from Caleb's torn blisters. 6 hours into digging the diversion channel, and they'd made maybe 50 feet. The sun hammered down like it had personal business with every living thing in Texas. Eliza worked 10 feet ahead, swinging her own pick in steady rhythm. Her dress had gone dark with sweat, clinging to her back. She'd torn the bottom 6 inches off her hem 2 hours ago when it kept catching. Used the fabric to wrap her palms. Rock shelf, she called back, breathing hard. Goes deep. Caleb joined her, seeing where the limestone ledge ran crossways to their planned channel. No way around it. They'd have to break through or abandon this section entirely. Could angle south, he offered. Go around. Adds 40 feet. 2 more days' work. She leaned on her pick, studying the problem. Already she was kneeling, running her fingers along the rock face like reading scripture. Found something that satisfied her and marked it with a chunk of white stone. Here, and here. More marks. Hit these points in sequence, the whole shelf should fracture. You sure? My father took me to a limestone quarry once. Watched them split blocks for building. She positioned herself at the first mark. Same principle. They worked the fracture points, trading off when arms got too tired to lift the pick proper. The limestone rang with each strike, a bell tone that carried across the empty land. Caleb's shoulders burned. His back seized up twice, forcing him to stop and stretch out the knots. On the 20th strike at the third point, the rock made a different sound. Lower. Hollow. "Again," Eliza said. "Same spot." He swung. The crack appeared like lightning frozen in stone, jagged line running the full width of their channel. "Now both of us, either end." They positioned themselves, picks raised, swung together. The shelf split clean, 2-ton slab dropping into the space below with a grinding roar that echoed off the distant hills. Eliza sat down hard in the dirt, laughing. Not delicate laughter, the rough, exhausted kind that came from somewhere deep. Her hair had come completely undone, hanging in wet strings around her face. Dirt streaked her cheeks where she'd wiped sweat with muddy hands. "We did it!" She lay back flat in the dust, arms spread wide. "Sweet Lord in heaven, we actually did it!" Caleb dropped beside her, his own laughter catching him by surprise. They lay there in their hand-dug ditch, staring up at the white-hot sky, breathing hard. Her fingers were maybe an inch from his in the dirt. He could feel the heat radiating off her skin. "Your neighbors were wrong," she said. "About what?" "Yesterday. Wilson asking if I was your wife or hired help." She turned her head to look at him, eyes bright with exhaustion and something else. "I'm neither." "Then what are you?" "Your partner." She sat up, started repinning what was left of her hair. "Come on, we've got 2 hours of light left. Might as well start connecting to the creek." The work went faster with the rock shelf broken. They fell into rhythm. She'd loosen the soil, he'd shovel it out. Switch every 20 minutes to save their backs. By the time the sun touched the horizon, they had water trickling through their new channel. Just a trickle, but clean. "Look at that!" Eliza knelt where the diverted water pooled in their rough catch basin. "First clean water your southern pasture's seen in a year." She cupped some in her palms, brought it to her lips, drank deep, water running down her chin and neck, soaking into the collar of her ruined dress. Cupped more and offered it to him. Caleb drank from her hands. The water tasted of minerals and earth, but underneath that, clean. No sulfur, no metal. Her hands stayed steady despite the torn blisters, the tremor of exhaustion in her arms. "We need to seal the old creek channel," she said. "Force all the water through our diversion." "Tomorrow, after we see what's upstream." Her expression shifted, went careful. "About that, we should go armed." "You know how to shoot?" "My father taught me. After the first time Copper Crown men came to the store." She stood, brushing dirt from what was left of her skirt. "I'm a fair shot with a rifle, better with a shotgun." They loaded their tools as the last light faded. Every bump on the wagon ride back sent pain through Caleb's torn hands. Beside him, Eliza held herself upright through pure will, though he could see the cost in the tight line of her jaw. At the house, she headed straight for the pump, worked the handle until water ran cold, then stuck her whole head under the flow. Came up gasping, water streaming down her face and neck, soaking the front of her dress. "Your turn," she said, working the handle for him. The cold water shocked away the day's heat, washed salt from his eyes and grit from his hair. When he straightened, she was watching him with that evaluating look she got. "You're stronger than you appear," she said. "You're tougher than advertised." "False advertising's a sin." She headed for the house. "I need to change before I scandalize your neighbors." While she was inside, Wilson rode up on his gray mare. "Saw you two digging from my east ridge," he said without preamble. "That why my cattle are dying?" "Creek's poisoned. We're diverting clean water from upstream." Wilson's face darkened. "The Henderson place?" "Looks like it." "But they left 2 years ago." "Someone's up there. Mining operation near as we can tell." Wilson spat tobacco juice into the dust. "My father fought Indians for this land. I'll be blessed if I let some mining outfit poison us off it." "We're riding up tomorrow to investigate." Not alone, you're not. Wilson turned his horse. I'll bring Ben Young, maybe Tom Sawyer if he's sober. We'll meet you at dawn. After Wilson left, Eliza emerged in a clean dress, her hair pinned up proper again. The transformation was remarkable. From mud-covered laborer to respectable woman in minutes. Neighbors joining us? 3, maybe 4. Good. Witnesses. She moved to the stove, started working on supper. They tried to buy you out yet? No, just the warnings. They will. Copper Crown always tries money first, then threats, then... She stopped, hands still on the skillet handle. Then what? Then people have accidents. She turned to face him. My father fell downstairs he'd climbed every day for 20 years. The sheriff called it natural. Old man, poor light. You don't believe it. I was there, Caleb, hidden in the storeroom. Heard them talking to him first. Heard him refuse their last offer. Her knuckles went white on the skillet handle. 20 minutes later, he fell. The weight of that settled between them. Caleb thought about his parents, dead from fever. At least, that's what the doctor had said. But there were different kinds of fever, and some came from poisoned water. How long ago? He asked. 14 months, she turned back to the stove. I left St. Louis the next week. They ate in silence, beans and cornbread, simple but filling. The kind of meal his mother used to make when times were lean. Eliza had even found his mother's jar of sorghum molasses, drizzled it over the cornbread just right. Why Texas? He asked finally. Why answer my advertisement out of all of them? She considered the question while chewing. You were honest about failing. Men who admit weakness are usually stronger than those who boast. Or more desperate. That too. She set down her fork. But desperate men make dangerous allies. And I needed an ally, Caleb. Not a savior, not a keeper. An ally. Against Copper Crown. Against anyone who thinks they can take what they want just because they have money and men with guns. She stood, started clearing dishes. Your parents, what kind of fever? The question caught him off guard. Doctor couldn't say, came on sudden, burning hot. They were gone in 3 days. Both at once? Within hours of each other. She stopped moving, plate still in her hands. When? 15 months ago. The plate settled onto the table with a soft click. Right when Copper Crown was expanding into Texas, right when the Henderson place was sold. The implication hung between them like smoke. His parents, her father. All dead within a month of each other. All standing in Copper Crown's way. We can't prove anything, he said. Not yet. She pulled out her ledger, started making notes. But patterns don't lie. And this pattern says they've been planning this for over a year. A sound from outside. Horses, moving slow. Caleb grabbed the rifle, but Eliza stopped him with a hand on his arm. Too many, she whispered. 8, maybe 10 riders. They moved to the window together. In the moonlight, dark shapes circled the house. One rider came close enough that they could see his face in the silver light. City clothes. Clean-shaven. The kind of man who didn't belong on a ranch at night. That's Thomas Garrett, Eliza breathed. Copper Crown's main enforcer. The man who was in my father's store the night he died. Garrett rode closer, looking directly at their window. He touched the brim of his hat in mock salute, then wheeled his horse around. The other riders followed, heading north toward Henderson's place. They wanted us to see them, Caleb said. They wanted me to see him. Eliza's voice was steady, but her hand trembled where it still rested on his arm. He knows who I am. Knows I came here. She moved to her trunk, pulled out something wrapped in oilcloth, unwrapped it careful to reveal a Navy Colt revolver, the metal well-oiled and gleaming. This was my father's, she said. I took it from the store that night. First time I've unwrapped it since. You know how to use it? Yes. She checked the loads with practiced efficiency. Question is, will I need to? Before Caleb could answer, something crashed through the window. A rock wrapped in paper. Glass scattered across the floor, glittering in the lamplight. Eliza picked up the paper, unfolded it. Same crude handwriting as before, but the message was different. The woman knows what we want. Give us the documents, or lose everything like her father. Documents? Caleb asked. Eliza's face had gone pale. My father kept records. Every threat Copper Crown made, every bribe they offered, every suspicious death they might have caused. She folded the paper careful, put it in her pocket. I brought them with me. Where? She moved to her trunk, pulled out what looked like a false bottom. Inside, an oilskin packet thick with papers. Evidence, she said. Enough to destroy Copper Crown if the right judge sees it. Then why haven't you? Because the wrong judge would destroy me instead. She looked at him steady. Or you, now that we're married. That's why they wanted widows, Caleb. A widow can't testify against her husband's business partners. But she also can't use her dead husband's documents against them. The lamp flame wavered as Eliza adjusted the wick, throwing shadows across the kitchen table. Outside, the night had gone quiet. No crickets, no coyotes, nothing but the wind rattling the broken window they'd covered with oilcloth. They'll be back, she said, spreading her father's documents across the table. Garrett doesn't make social calls. Each paper told part of a larger story. Receipts for bribes, threatening letters, names of men who'd died sudden-like after refusing to sell. Caleb's stomach turned tighter with each page. This one. Eliza tapped a letter dated 2 years back. Henderson refused their first offer. A week later, his wife took sick. She was dead within the month. Doc Ferris said it was consumption. Doc Ferris, whose gambling debts got paid off that same month? She pulled out another paper. My father tracked every dollar Copper Crown spent. Every coincidence that wasn't. The lamplight caught her face, showing dark circles under her eyes. She'd been up since before dawn, dug ditches all day, and still her pencil moved steady across the page, adding notes to her father's research. Your parents. She pulled out a fresh sheet. Tell me exactly how they got sick. Caleb's throat felt full of sand. Started with mother. Stomach cramps, fever. Father tried to nurse her, but he came down with it the next day. What did they eat? Drink? Same as always. Beans, cornbread, coffee. He stopped. Except the new well. We dug a new well the week before. The old one was running low. Eliza's pencil stopped moving. Who suggested the new location? Memory surfaced slow, like something rising from deep water. Fellow came by. Said he was surveying for the railroad. Showed us where the water table was highest. What did he look like? City clothes, clean-shaven, talked educated. The picture cleared in his mind. Looked like Garrett, come to think of it. Because it was Garrett. She pulled out another document. Railroad survey was finished 3 years ago. No reason for new surveying. The weight of it settled on Caleb's chest like stones. They'd murdered his parents. Slow and deliberate, with poisoned water from a well they'd helped locate. I need some air, he said, standing too quick. The room tilted slightly. Caleb! But he was already out the door, standing in the yard, pulling night air into his lungs. The stars looked cold and far away. Everything he'd believed about his parents' death was a lie. Eliza came out quiet-like, stood beside him without touching. I'm sorry. You knew. When you came here, you suspected. I suspected. Now I know. She pulled something from her apron pocket. This came with the rock through the window. Another paper, smaller. A list of names. His was at the bottom, but above it, crossed out, were his parents' names. And above those, more names he recognized. Neighbors who'd sold out sudden. Others who died from fever, accidents, bad luck. They're methodical, Eliza said. Patient. They've been clearing this valley for 2 years. Why? What's worth this much killing? That's what we need to find out. She turned back toward the house. But first, I need to show you something else. Inside, she pulled out a small wooden box from her trunk. Inside, letters. Dozens of them, all addressed to Miss E. Moore. The responses to my advertisement, she said. 23 men wanted to marry me. She pulled out one envelope, different from the others. Cheaper paper, water-stained. This one came from Henderson's place. The letter inside was brief, the handwriting crude. Miss Moore, my son needs a wife. Strong woman, not afraid of work or loneliness. Ranch is remote but prosperous. Come quick if interested. J. Henderson. But Henderson doesn't have a son, Caleb said, and his wife had been dead a month when this was posted. She pulled out another letter, this one on better paper. This one's from Garrett, though he used a false name. Promised me wealth, comfort, protection. Why show me these? Because I chose you instead. She met his eyes steady. Your letter was the only honest one. You admitted failure. That kind of honesty is rare. She pulled out his letter, worn soft from handling. He remembered writing it, desperate and half-drunk on the last of his father's whiskey. 43 words that changed everything. I almost didn't send it, he admitted. I'm glad you did. She folded it careful, put it back in her pocket, separate from the others. We make a good team. Do we? Your knowledge of the land, my knowledge of the law, your strength, my strategy. She allowed herself a small smile. Yes, we make a very good team. A sound from outside. Horses again, but different this time. Moving fast, urgent. Wilson's voice carried through the night. Hart, get out here! They found Wilson in the yard with Ben Young, both men armed and agitated. Tom Sawyer's barn is burning, Wilson said. Started an hour ago. No way to save it. Lightning? Caleb asked, though the sky was clear. Coal oil. Can smell it from the road. Ben Young spat into the dust. And there's more. Found this nailed to my gate. Another warning, same crude writing. Stay away from Henderson Place or burn. They're escalating, Eliza said quiet. Ma'am? Wilson looked at her proper for the first time. They're getting desperate. Burning barns, making threats. Something's pushing them to move faster than planned. What kind of something? Ben asked. Eliza looked at Caleb. He nodded. These men deserved the truth. Circuit Judge is coming through next week, she said. Judge Morrison. He's got a reputation for being honest. If we can get evidence to him about the water poisoning, about the murders... Murders? Wilson's voice went sharp. Caleb found himself telling it all. His parents, Henderson's wife, the systematic clearing of the valley. The two men listened, faces growing darker with each detail. My brother sold out last year, Ben said slow. Said his well went bad. Cattle started dying. I thought it was bad luck. No such thing as that much bad luck, Eliza said. Wilson worked his tobacco thinking. How many guns they got up there? 10 that we saw tonight, probably more. We got maybe 6 men who'd fight. Not enough. We don't need to fight, Eliza said. We need evidence, legal proof that they're poisoning the water. That's a federal crime. Beggin' pardon, ma'am, Wilson said, but legal don't mean much when your barn's burnin'. It does if we can get to Judge Morrison first. She pulled out a map, spread it on the wagon bed. Look, if we can document the poisoning, get water samples, testimonies. Another sound cut her off. Not horses this time. A bell ringing from town. The emergency bell that only rang for Indian attacks or prairie fires or disasters. That's from the direction of the Sawyer place, Ben said. They could see the glow on the horizon now. Not just a barn this time. Something bigger burning. House too, Wilson said grim. They're burning them out completely. Eliza's hand found Caleb's arm. They're not waiting for the judge. They're cleaning up now, tonight. Then we'd best ford up, Wilson said. Ben, get your family to town. I'll do the same. What about you? Ben asked Caleb. Before he could answer, Eliza spoke. We're staying. This is our land. Ma'am, all respect, but they want these documents. She held up the oilskin packet. Evidence that could destroy Copper Crown. As long as I have them, they'll come here. That gives you time to get your family safe and rally help from town. Wilson chewed his tobacco, calculating. You're making yourselves bait. Yes. That's brave or stupid. Can't decide which. Both, Caleb said. But she's right. They want what we have. They'll come for it. The men left to gather their families. Caleb and Eliza stood in their yard, watching the glow on the horizon grow brighter. They might just burn us out too, he said. No, Garrett needs these documents. He can't risk them burning. She hefted the packet. This is better protection than any gun. Unless they decide to kill us and take them. They could have done that tonight, but they want me alive. Her voice went flat. A widow can be forced to sign things. A dead woman can't. The implication of that, what they intended for him versus what they intended for her, made Caleb's hands curl into fists. Over my dead body. That's exactly what they have in mind. She turned toward the house. We need to prepare. Board the windows, fill water barrels in case they try to smoke us out. They worked through the night, fortifying the house best they could. As dawn approached, Eliza made one last preparation. She took half the documents from the packet, wrapped them separate. Hide these, she told Caleb, somewhere they'd never look. Why split them? Because Garrett's smart. He'll expect tricks. She kept the other half, tucking them into her bodice. If something happens to me, nothing's going to happen. If it does, she continued steady, get these to Judge Morrison. Promise me. Eliza, promise me, Caleb. He took the documents. I promise. The sun rose red through the smoke still drifting from the Sawyer place. In that bloody light, riders appeared on the horizon. Not 10 this time, 20, maybe 30, moving slow and steady toward the house. They brought an army, Caleb said. No. Eliza's voice was strange, almost wondering. Look at the lead rider. Caleb looked. The man in front wore a badge that caught the morning light. That's Marshal Coleman, Eliza breathed. Federal Marshal. But how? The answer came from an unexpected source. Another rider, one Caleb recognized with shock. That's Henderson, he said. The real Henderson. The sky turned the color of an old bruise while they were still watching the marshals approach. Wind picked up from the northwest, carrying the smell of rain and something electric. Inside, Eliza said sharp. Storm's coming fast. The first fat raindrops hit as they reached the porch. Thunder rolled across the valley like a barrel downstairs. But Caleb's attention stayed on the riders. They'd stopped at his property line, Marshall and Henderson conferring. Why aren't they coming in? He asked. Because that's not who they're after. Eliza moved away from the window. They're heading for Henderson's place. The real Henderson must have reported the squatters. Lightning cracked close enough to taste copper in the air. In that white flash, Caleb saw something that made his stomach drop. The cattle. 30 head, maybe 35, pressed against the back wall of the box canyon. The same canyon that would flood in minutes once this storm really hit. They ran. No discussion, just both of them moving at once. Grabbed ropes from the barn as thunder crashed overhead. The rain hit full force before they'd made it halfway. Cold, hard drops that stung like buckshot. The canyon was already starting to fill. Water ran brown down the walls, carrying debris from higher ground. The cattle pressed tighter together, eyes rolling white with fear. The lead steer, old Moses, bellowed at the sky. Can't drive 'em out the mouth, Eliza shouted over the storm. They'll scatter. She was right. Panicked cattle in a lightning storm would run blind, probably straight off a cliff or into the flooded creek. The ledge! Caleb pointed to a natural shelf 8 feet up the canyon wall. If we can get them up there... Not all of them, maybe half. Eliza was already moving, fashioning a harness from her rope. She got it over a calf's head before the little thing could spook. The mother cow followed, desperate to stay close. Pull from above, I'll push from below, she called. Caleb scrambled up the wet rock, boots slipping on limestone, made it to the ledge just as Eliza got the calf positioned. He hauled while she guided, lifted, pushed. The calf came up bawling, its mother bellowing below. They got the cow up next, 600 pounds of frightened beef, hooves scraping stone. The rain turned everything slick as soap. The cow's back hoof caught Caleb's ribs, drove air from his lungs. But they got her up. 28 more to go. They worked without talking, finding rhythm born of desperation. The water rose fast, first to Eliza's ankles, then her knees. A yearling bull refused to move. Caleb slid down, grabbed the animal's hindquarters. Together they lifted, pushed, practically threw it up the slope. Thunder crashed directly overhead, so loud Caleb's ears rang. Lightning turned everything white. In that instant, he saw Eliza's face, fierce with determination, beautiful in its focus. 6 cattle left on the canyon floor. Water to Eliza's thighs now, current getting strong. "The calves first!" she shouted. 3 calves, easier to lift but harder to catch. One got swept sideways. Eliza dove after it, both of them slamming into the canyon wall. She came up sputtering, calf held tight in her arms. "Here!" Caleb reached down, caught the calf's legs, hauled it up, then grabbed Eliza's reaching hands. Her weight plus the water nearly pulled him off the ledge, but she got her feet on rock, pushed herself up. 2 more calves. The water was chest deep on her now. "Get up here!" Caleb ordered. "Not yet." She was already wading toward the next calf. The wall of water hit while she was mid-canyon. Caleb saw it coming, brown waves 6 feet high carrying branches and debris. No time to warn her. He jumped from the ledge, hit the water just as the wave reached them. The impact drove them both under. Tumbling in darkness, his hand found fabric, her dress. He pulled hard, broke surface with her against him. A root stuck out from the canyon wall. He grabbed it with his free hand, held them both while the water tried to tear them loose. Eliza's arms went around his neck, her body pressed full against his. The main surge passed. Still dangerous, still rising, but not the killing wall. "The ledge," she gasped in his ear. "Can you—" Together. They pulled sideways along the route, fighting current to reach the canyon wall. Found footholds, handholds, climbed together, her finding grips, him pushing from below. Made the first ledge, then the second where the cattle huddled. They collapsed against the rock wall, breathing hard. Water roared below, already within 3 feet of their ledge. "Higher," Caleb said. 1 more ledge, barely big enough for them, but above the floodline. They climbed again, muscles screaming. Made it just as water reached where they'd been. The storm raged. Lightning struck close enough to smell ozone. Rain came sideways. They pressed against the canyon wall, Eliza tucked against his chest, both shaking from cold and exhaustion. "The cattle," she said against his shoulder. Caleb looked down. Most of the herd safe on the middle ledge, pressed together but above water. 23, maybe 24 head saved. "We did it." "Your livelihood. Our livelihood." She pulled back enough to look at him. Water streamed down her face, hair plastered dark against her skull. Her eyes were bright, alive, fierce with survival. "Caleb." Just his name, but the way she said it, looking at him like that with the storm raging around them, their bodies pressed together for warmth and balance, it carried everything they hadn't said yet. He kissed her. Not gentle, not careful. The kiss was like the storm, sudden, complete, overwhelming. She kissed back with the same intensity, her hands fisting in his soaked shirt. Thunder crashed. Lightning turned everything white. The world narrowed to just this, her mouth on his, the taste of rain and desperation, the heat between them despite the cold. She broke away first, breathing hard, not pulling back, just enough space to speak. The storm's passing. It was. The rain softer now, lightning moving east. The water below had stopped rising. We should check the cattle, she said. We should. Neither moved, her hand still twisted in his shirt, his arms still around her. Caleb, I need to tell you something. The serious tone cut through the moment. What? At Henderson's place, before the storm, when the marshals were riding up, I saw something. She took a steadying breath. There were men running, from the buildings, and equipment. Mining equipment? No. Her eyes met his, dark with certainty. Printing equipment, presses, the kind used for making documents. Documents? Or money? Her voice went flat. They're not mining, Caleb. They're counterfeiting. That's why they need the isolation, why they're willing to kill for this valley. The rain stopped sudden as it started. In the silence, another sound carried clear. Gunfire. From the direction of Henderson's place. The marshals, Caleb said. They found them. Eliza started climbing down. We need to get back, if Garrett escapes. More gunfire, closer this time. They made it down from the ledge, waded through knee-deep water still draining from the canyon, started running toward the house. The ground was mud now, sucking at their boots. A rider came over the rise fast. Not a marshal. Garrett. His city clothes were torn, blood on his shoulder. He saw them, wheeled his horse straight at them. The documents, he shouted. Give them to me and I'll let you live. Eliza stepped forward, pulled the packet from her bodice, held it up where he could see. These? She stepped backward toward the still flooding creek. Come get them. Don't be stupid, woman. You don't know what you're interfering with. I know you killed my father, killed his parents. She took another step back. Water swirled around her ankles now. I know enough. Garrett pulled a gun. The documents, now. Shoot me and they wash downstream. You'll never find them. His face twisted with rage and calculation. The gun swung toward Caleb instead. How about I shoot him? You'll hand them over quick enough then. No. Eliza's voice was steady as stone. Shoot him and I jump. Either way, you lose. They stood frozen in that triangle. Garrett on horseback with his gun, Caleb weaponless in the open, Eliza knee-deep in floodwater with papers that could destroy an empire. Then, from behind Garrett, another voice. Drop the weapon. Marshal Coleman, on foot, rifle aimed steady. Henderson beside him, looking older and grayer, but very much alive. Garrett's gun swung toward the marshal. Three things happened at once. Coleman fired, Garrett's horse reared, and Eliza lost her footing in the current, the documents scattering from her hands into the raging water. Marshal Coleman's badge caught the morning sun as he stood in Caleb's doorway. Behind him, a younger man in a city suit clutched a leather portfolio, sweat already beading on his forehead despite the early hour. Mrs. Eliza Hart? The marshal's voice was neutral, careful. Formerly Miss Eliza Moore of St. Louis? Eliza's coffee cup stopped halfway to her lips. Her shoulders pulled back just slightly. I'm Mrs. Hart. Ma'am, I'm Federal Marshal Tom Coleman. This is Mr. James Winthrop, attorney representing the estate of Charles Moore and certain creditors thereof. The lawyer stepped forward, already pulling papers from his portfolio. Mrs. Hart, you're named in a complaint filed in Missouri regarding theft of assets belonging to your late husband's family. My husband is very much alive. Eliza set down her cup with deliberate care. Your first husband, ma'am. Charles Moore, deceased 14 months ago in St. Louis. First husband. The words hung in the kitchen like smoke from burnt bacon. Charles Moore was my father, Eliza said, not my husband. The lawyer consulted his papers. We have documentation. Marriage certificate dated June 1881, witnessed and filed in St. Louis County. Then you have fraudulent papers. Ma'am, I need you to come with us, the marshal said. Sort this matter out proper. Am I under arrest? Not yet, but Mr. Henry Moore has filed serious accusations, Says you took money, jewelry, bonds belonging to the family. Says you fled to avoid legal responsibilities. Henry Moore. Eliza's jaw tightened just enough for her to notice. Henry Moore is my uncle, my father's brother. Her voice stayed level. And he's the one who forged those papers. The lawyer pulled out more documents. These are sworn affidavits, Mrs. Hart. 3 witnesses state they attended your wedding to Charles Moore, Jr. Charles Jr. has been dead 6 years. Died in Wyoming during the Range Wars. The Spanish conflict ended. Not that war. The Cattle Wars. Charles died working for the Marquis de Morez. Eliza stood slowly. Henry identified the body himself. The marshal and lawyer exchanged glances. Winthrop shuffled his papers, found another document. Nevertheless, these witnesses— May I see those affidavits? The lawyer hesitated, looked to the marshal. Coleman nodded. Eliza read through them, face giving nothing away. Then she looked up at the lawyer. Mr. Winthrop, do you know a man named Thomas Garrett? I don't believe so. He works for Copper Crown Company, based here in Texas now, but originally from St. Louis. She tapped one of the affidavits. This witness, Sarah Hendricks, she's Garrett's cousin. This one, Robert Marsh, he owes Garrett $3,000 from a failed business venture. That's immaterial. And this one, she held up the third affidavit. James Paulson. Check the St. Louis City Directory. No such person at this address. The lawyer's face flushed red. These were provided by Mr. Henry Moore, who stands to inherit my father's remaining assets if I'm declared legally dead or imprisoned. Eliza handed the papers back. Tell me, Mr. Winthrop, who's paying your fee? That's confidential. Copper Crown Company. Not a question. The same company that drove my father to bankruptcy. The same company that was counterfeiting federal currency at Henderson's place until yesterday. Marshal Coleman straightened. The counterfeiting operation we just shut down? Yes, run by Thomas Garrett. She moved to the shelf, pulled down a jar of murky water. They poisoned our water to drive out witnesses. That's a federal crime, too. Ma'am, that's not why we're here. No, you're here because Henry Moore wants to steal what little my father left me, and because Copper Crown wants this ranch. These are serious allegations, Winthrop said. Sue me. Add it to the list of things Henry claims I owe. Caleb stood, moving beside her. Marshal, what exactly needs to happen here? Coleman looked uncomfortable. If Mrs. Hart comes voluntarily, we can sort this in Sweetwater. Judge Morrison rides circuit next week. If she doesn't, then you arrest her. Have to. Federal warrant's already sworn out, just not executed yet. Based on false documents. That's for a judge to determine. Eliza turned to Caleb. I need a moment with my husband, privately. The 2 men stepped onto the porch. Through the window, Caleb could see them talking, the lawyer gesturing sharp while the marshal stood solid. There's more, Eliza said quiet. Henry didn't just want my father's money. After father died, Henry offered to clear all debts if I married his business partner. Garrett? Yes, the same man you saw yesterday, the one organizing the counterfeiting. She moved to the loose board behind the stove, pulled out papers hidden there. These are evidence, but half of what we had washed away in the flood. We still have these. Not enough. Not without the documents that proved the murders. She looked at him steady. They'll arrest me, Caleb. Hold me until trial. And Henry has judges he owns in Missouri. Then we don't let them take you to Missouri. It's federal charges. They can transport me anywhere. She pulled paper and pencil from the drawer. I need to write everything down. Names, dates, connections, in case. Nothing's going to happen. Promise me, if I'm arrested and held, you get these to someone who will listen. A newspaper, a different federal judge. Eliza, promise me. He took the paper she was writing. I promise. She wrote fast, filling 3 pages with her precise handwriting. When she finished, she folded them, handed them to him. "Hide these, not here." They went to the door together. The marshal and lawyer waited by a hired carriage. "We'll take our wagon," Caleb said. "Mr. Hart, my wife isn't under arrest. We'll follow you to Sweetwater." The ride to town took 3 hours. The lawyer's carriage led, dust coating everything. Eliza sat straight beside Caleb, hands folded in her lap. "Tell me about Charles Jr.," he said when they were an hour out. "My cousin wanted to be a cowboy, went to Wyoming, got caught in the crossfire between big ranchers and small." She paused. "Henry always hated that my father inherited the store instead of him. When father died, he saw his chance to rewrite history." They passed the spot where they dug the water channel just days ago. Already, green shoots showed where clean water reached. "Whatever happens," Eliza said, "keep the ranch. Don't let them. Whatever happens, we handle together." "You can't promise that." "Watch me." Sweetwater appeared ahead. People stopped to stare as their procession passed. Word would spread fast. Caleb Hart's mail-order bride in legal trouble. The marshal's office sat next to the courthouse. Coleman dismounted, came to help Eliza down. She ignored his hand, climbed down herself. Inside, a holding cell sat empty in the back corner. Eliza's eyes went to it, then away. "Sit," Coleman indicated chairs. "Mr. Winthrop needs to present his evidence." The lawyer spread documents across the desk. Marriage certificate, affidavits, a photograph. Woman in a wedding dress, face unclear, but hair like Eliza's. "That's not me," Eliza said immediately. "3 witnesses say otherwise." "3 liars say otherwise." Winthrop pulled out another paper. "Bill of sale for jewelry, signed by you." Eliza leaned forward. "That's not my signature." "An expert in St. Louis says it is." "Paid by Henry Moore?" "Ma'am," Marshal Coleman interrupted, "these are serious documents. A judge needs to review them." "When?" "Circuit judge arrives Thursday. 3 days." "And until then?" Coleman looked uncomfortable. "You'll need to be held." "In jail?" "Or post bond. $500. $500. More than the ranch made in a year." "I'll stay," Eliza said quiet. "No." Caleb's mind raced. "The cattle. We have—" "Not acceptable as bond," Winthrop said quick. "Cash only." A knock at the door interrupted. Coleman opened it. Wilson stood there, Ben Young behind him. Then the Hendricks, the Sawyers, 6 families. "Marshal," Wilson said, "heard there might be trouble." "Legal matter." "Legal matter concerning our neighbors." Wilson looked past him. "Folks who helped save our cattle in yesterday's flood, who showed us the water was poisoned." "That's not relevant." "Might be we can help with bond," Ben Young said. Each neighbor pulled out money. 10s, 20s, adding up on the desk. "This is highly irregular," Winthrop protested. "This is Texas," Wilson said. "We stand by our own." They pooled their money. $380. "Not enough," Winthrop said, satisfied. "Here." Clara Young pulled off her wedding ring. "Worth $150 at least." "Clara, no," Eliza said. "It's a loan." Clara squeezed her hand. "You'd do the same." Marshal Coleman counted the money, examined the ring. "I'll accept this as bond. Mrs. Hart, you're free until Thursday's hearing. Don't leave the county." The crowd dispersed slowly, each neighbor offering support. Wilson lingered last. "That counterfeiting operation," he said quiet to Caleb. "Connected to this?" "All of it's connected." "Then we'd best be ready. Men who forge federal notes and murder witnesses don't quit easy." After Wilson left, Caleb and Eliza stood alone outside the marshal's office. The sun was setting, painting Sweetwater red. "They stood by me," Eliza said, wonder in her voice. "They know good folks when they see them." She turned to him. "Caleb, Thursday's hearing will go our way." "You don't know that." "I know we have 3 days to prove the truth." As they drove out of town, Eliza pulled a folded paper from her pocket. "This came while you were in the barn this morning." She handed it to him. "Slipped under the door." Same crude handwriting as before. "Your wife for your land. Midnight. Henderson's Gate. Come alone." "They're desperate," she said. "Desperate men do desperate things." "Yes." She looked back toward town, then ahead toward their ranch. "Question is, what do we do about it?" The answer seemed obvious, too obvious, which meant it was probably a trap. But as they rolled toward home in the dying light, Caleb remembered something. Yesterday, when Garrett's horse had reared, when Eliza had fallen into the flood, Garrett had been shot in the shoulder. But he'd gotten away in the confusion. Wounded, desperate, and still out there. "Caleb?" Eliza's voice pulled him back. "We spring their trap," he said, "but not the way they expect." She was quiet for a moment, then, "Garrett's still alive, isn't he? He got away." "Yes." "Then it's not over." She touched the papers hidden in her bodice, the ones she'd managed to save from the flood. "He needs these, the real evidence of the murders. Without it, it's just counterfeiting charges." "How does he know you still have any documents? Most of them washed away." Eliza's face went pale. "Because Henry told him exactly what Father had. He knows what's missing." She gripped Caleb's arm. "They know about the murder evidence, the papers that prove they killed your parents, my father. That's what they really want." 2 a.m, and Caleb walked through his empty house like a man cataloging what he was about to lose. Every improvement Eliza had made in 7 days stood out in the moonlight through the windows. The ledger stacked neat on the shelf, each spine labeled in her precise hand. The kitchen reorganized so everything had its place. The water samples on the windowsill, evidence for Thursday's hearing. Her coffee cup still sat where she'd left it this afternoon. Said she needed to ride to town, prepare her defense. Took her horse and the Navy Colt. That was 8 hours ago. The note from Henderson's Gate lay spread on the table. "Your wife for your land. Midnight." 4 hours past midnight now, and she hadn't come home. Caleb picked up the cup. Coffee dried in a ring at the bottom, still smelled of the chicory she added. Small thing that made everything in this house carry her mark after just a week. In the bedroom, her trunk stood open. He knelt beside it, needing some connection. Clean folded dresses. Legal books thick as fence posts. At the bottom, wrapped in oilcloth, a photograph. Young man in uniform, face hard beyond his years. Charles Jr. probably. The cousin Henry Moore claimed she'd married. Under the photograph, more papers. Her father's death certificate. Cause, accidental fall. The doctor's signature looked shaky. And beneath everything, a letter in Eliza's handwriting, dated the night she'd arrived. "If something happens to me, know this. I chose Caleb Hart because his honesty reminded me of my father before the world broke him. I've brought trouble to his door, though I tried to run far enough it wouldn't follow. The men who killed Papa want more than money. They want to own everything, control everything. I won't let them. The water rights are key. Guard the water. I'm writing this my first night in Texas, in a stranger's house, planning to fight for a ranch I've never seen in daylight. Perhaps that's foolish, but if you're reading this, it means I fought. E. Moore, Hart." She'd written it before she knew him, before the water channel, the flood, the kiss in the canyon. Before everything, she'd been ready to fight. His horse nickered outside, another horse approaching. Caleb grabbed the rifle, made it to the porch as Wilson emerged from darkness. "She's at the depot," Wilson said without preamble. "Got there an hour ago, demanded to see Judge Morrison." "Morrison's here?" "Came early. She knew somehow." Wilson dismounted. "She's in that depot office right now, middle of the night, presenting evidence to a federal judge. Alone." Caleb was already heading for the barn. "Why didn't someone—" "She asked us not to tell you. Said you needed to stay clear." Wilson followed. "But there's more. 5 men rode in from the north. They're waiting outside." "Garrett's men?" Have to be. They rode hard toward town. 3 miles never seemed longer. The depot was the only building lit, its windows glowing yellow in the darkness. 5 horses tied outside, men clustered near the door. "Depot's closed," one said as Caleb dismounted. "Not to me." "You'd be Hart, the husband." The man smiled without warmth. "She's quite something, your wife. Too bad she's delusional." "Only delusion here is you thinking you'll steal my land." "Our land. Bought legal from Henderson." "After you forced him out." The smile dropped. "Careful with accusations." The depot door opened. Marshal Coleman stepped out. "Problem here?" "No problem," the man said smooth. "Good. Mr. Hart, you can go in. Judge wants to see you." Inside, Judge Morrison sat behind the station master's desk, gray-haired and stern despite the hour. Eliza stood before him, documents spread across the table. She turned when Caleb entered. She'd been crying, not weak tears, but the angry kind. "Mr. Hart," Morrison said, "your wife has presented compelling evidence." Morrison spread papers across his makeshift bench, the marriage certificate next to another document. "Death certificate for Charles Moore, Jr., the judge said. "Died in Wyoming 6 years ago. Body identified by Henry Moore, same man who claims the boy married Mrs. Hart 2 years ago." More papers. "Receipts for jewelry Henry Moore says she stole. Dated 3 months before her father died." Another document. "Letter from Henderson, posted from California last month. Very much alive, contrary to what Copper Crown claimed." "How did you—" "Telegraph," Eliza said. "I sent inquiries 3 days ago. Responses came tonight." "There's more," Morrison continued. "Water samples showing illegal levels of toxins. Statements from 6 ranches about poisoning. And this." He held up a letter. Same crude handwriting as the threats. "Found under my hotel door. Offering me $5,000 to rule against Mrs. Hart." Morrison's face was granite. "Attempted bribery of a federal judge." "Can you prove who sent it?" "No, but Mrs. Hart proved something else." The judge nodded to her. Eliza pulled out a final document. "Bill of sale for Henderson's ranch. Sold to Copper Crown for $12,000. "That proves they own it." "Look at the date." The sale was dated 2 weeks after Henderson had supposedly left for California. "Dead men don't sell property," Morrison said. "Either Henderson was still here, making Copper Crown's abandonment claim false, or this document is forged. Either way, their claim is void. The property reverts to federal control." Morrison gathered the papers. "Mrs. Hart, I'm dismissing all charges. Moreover, I'm issuing warrants for Henry Moore and Thomas Garrett." Eliza sagged slightly. Caleb caught her arm. "Furthermore," Morrison continued, "I'm ordering federal oversight of the Henderson property. No one from Copper Crown sets foot there." "They won't accept that," Eliza said. "They don't have a choice. Marshal Coleman will enforce it." The judge stood. "Go home. Let the law handle this." Outside, dawn was breaking. The Copper Crown men had vanished. Wilson waited with the horses. "It's over," he said. "No." Eliza looked north. "They don't accept legal defeat." She was right. Caleb could feel it, that storm-coming tension. They rode home as sun climbed. At the ranch, everything looked normal. Cattle drinking from clean water, morning birds calling. But fresh horse tracks marked the yard. Many horses. Recent. 8 riders, Eliza said, studying the marks. Maybe 9. Less than an hour old. They checked the house careful. Nothing disturbed except for a note on the table. Legal means failed. Other means remain. The woman knows what we want. Eliza picked it up, read it twice. They want the murder evidence. The documents proving they killed your parents, my father. You have those? She moved to her trunk, pulled out the false bottom. An oilskin packet, separate from what had washed away. Father kept records of everything. Their threats, their bribes, the deaths that followed? She held the packet tight. I couldn't use them in St. Louis. Police were bought. But here they're evidence of conspiracy across state lines. Federal crime. Which Morrison would prosecute. She set the packet down. That's why they're desperate. Sound from outside. Horses running hard. Ben Young and Clara rode up fast. They took Amy, Clara called out, tears streaming. Our daughter! Left a note saying they'll trade her for papers only Mrs. Hart can provide. Eliza went white. Amy Young was 12 years old. When? Hour ago. She was gathering eggs. Ben's voice broke. They want the trade at noon. Henderson's place. 6 hours. The sun climbed higher, already hot. Eliza picked up the packet, weighing it. Evidence that could destroy Copper Crown or a child's life. It's not a choice, she said quiet. Eliza, it's not a choice. She turned to the Youngs. We'll get Amy back. How? If you give them the papers, then we make sure the papers don't matter. She pulled down her legal books. Ben, ride to town. Tell Morrison everything. Get federal marshals to Henderson's place by noon. They said come alone. They said bring the papers. Didn't say what happens after. She looked at Caleb. You still trust me? Yes. Then we need Wilson and whoever will come. Armed. She opened a legal book, pulled out papers hidden between pages. Because I made copies of everything. The originals are what they want, but copies witnessed by a federal judge are still evidence, Caleb finished. Get Morrison to witness these now, she handed copies to Ben. Meet us at Henderson's gate before noon. The Youngs rode off. Eliza stood holding the packet and rifle. They won't release Amy even if I give them these, she said. I know. They'll try to kill us all. I know that too. She looked at him across the kitchen where everything had started 7 days ago. I'm sorry I brought this to you. Our door, our fight. He took her face in his hands. Our stand. She kissed him fierce and quick. If something happens, nothing will. If it does. She pressed the original packet into his hands. Hide these where they'll never look. The outhouse, behind the lime barrel. He was back in minutes. Ready? He asked. No. She checked the rifle. But Amy's waiting. They mounted up, riding toward Henderson's place where smoke rose black against the morning sky. They're burning evidence, Eliza said. As they got closer, Caleb could see men loading wagons. Copper Crown was preparing to run. Caleb, Eliza said suddenly, the copies I gave Ben, they're not complete. What? I kept something back, one document they don't know I have. She pulled a paper from her bodice. Garrett's signed confession, from 2 years ago when Father caught him stealing, before Copper Crown hired him. How does that help? Because it's dated before the murders started, proves he was already a criminal when Copper Crown hired him, makes them liable for everything he did after. They were almost to Henderson's gate, men with rifles visible now. Why didn't you give it to Morrison? Because if this goes wrong, if they kill us all, someone needs to know the truth. She handed him the paper. Hide this too, different place. But before Caleb could take it, a rifle shot cracked across the morning air. The paper tore from Eliza's hand, fluttering away like a wounded bird. Garrett stepped from behind the gatepost, rifle smoking, blood still seeping through the bandage on his shoulder from yesterday. Nice try, he said. Now give me the real documents, or the girl dies. Behind him, they dragged Amy Young into view. The child's face was pale but defiant, her hands tied in front of her. Let her go first, Eliza said. Documents first. Then we all die anyway. Maybe. Garrett smiled, ugly and certain. But she dies first, and slow. Eliza dismounted, started walking toward them. Caleb grabbed for her, but she shook him off. I'm coming, she called. With the documents. Let me see they're treating her proper. She walked straight toward Garrett, back rigid, hands visible, but the packet nowhere in sight. 10 feet from him, she stopped. Where are they? Garrett demanded. Safe. Let Amy walk to my husband. When she's clear, you get the documents. No games, woman. No games. She looked past him to Amy. It's going to be fine, sweetheart. Be brave a little longer. That's when Caleb saw it. Movement on the ridge. Riders coming fast. But not from town, from the north. More copper-crowned men returning from somewhere. And in the lead, a face that made Caleb's blood turn to ice. Henry Moore, Eliza's uncle, come to finish what he'd started in St. Louis. 3 months later, Caleb stood on the rise overlooking their expanded ranch, Eliza beside him with her hand resting on the gentle swell beneath her apron. Morning sun caught the new barn's cedar shakes, still pale with fresh cutting. Below, neighbors worked alongside hired hands, Wilson directing placement of support beams, while Ben Young and his boys hauled lumber. Clara Young organized the women bringing food, little Amy at her side carrying water buckets. Never thought I'd see this, Caleb said. The barn? All of it. His hand covered hers where it rested on her belly. This. The baby moved under their joined hands, strong enough now to feel from outside. 4 months along, maybe 5. She'd only told him last week, though looking back, the signs had been there. Morning sickness she'd blamed on bad coffee, loosening her dress seams. House needs expanding too, she said, practical as always. Already ordered lumber, arrives next week. She turned to look at him. When did you do that? Day after you told me. Confident. Practical. Baby needs room, whether I'm confident or not. Amy Young ran between the workers, fully recovered from her ordeal 3 months back. The girl followed Eliza everywhere now, wanting to learn everything from bookkeeping to birthing calves. She wants to study law back east, Eliza said, watching her. Because of you. Because of what she survived. Eliza's jaw tightened the way it did when she remembered that day. The confrontation at Henderson's Gate had ended swift once Marshal Coleman arrived with federal deputies. Henry Moore hadn't expected Morrison to be watching from the ridge. Hadn't expected 20 ranchers armed and ready. Mostly, hadn't expected Eliza to have sewn the real documents into Amy's dress while pretending to comfort her, knowing they'd never search a child. Garrett was serving 10 years now. Henry Moore, 15. Copper Crown's assets had been seized, the money distributed to families they'd hurt. Regrets? Caleb asked. About Henry? No. He chose his path. She shifted, adjusting for the baby. About leaving St. Louis? Never. The barn walls rose steady below. By nightfall, they'd have it roofed. Tomorrow, the community would finish the inside. By week's end, their livestock would have proper shelter. Water's still running clear, Eliza noted, looking toward the creek. 32 new calves this spring. 34. Simmons' cow dropped twins yesterday. Always correcting his numbers, always precise. But now he knew it for partnership, not criticism. Letter came from Henderson, Caleb said. The real one. What's he want? To apologize. Says he had no idea who bought his place. Can't fault him that. He's coming back. Bought the Jackson spread south of here. Good. Area needs honest ranchers. A shout from below. They'd raised the main beam. Everyone gathered to steady it while Wilson and Ben secured it. The crack of hammers on wood echoed across the valley. We should help, Eliza said. You should rest. I'm carrying, not crippled. But she swayed slightly when she turned. When'd you last eat? This morning. It's past noon. Ledgers needed finishing. He guided her down the slope, handed her elbow, though she didn't need it. Halfway down, she stopped. Look! A rider coming from town. The postal carrier. Mail, Mrs. Hart, he called. Letter from Boston. Eliza took the envelope, frowning at the return address. Law firm letterhead. What is it? She read quick, her expression shifting through surprise to something like wonder. My grandmother. Mother's mother. I thought she died years back, but... She handed him the letter. The old woman had been searching for her only grandchild. Recently learned of Eliza's whereabouts. Was establishing a trust of $10,000 in her name. I never knew her, Eliza said quiet. Mother died when I was 3. Father never spoke of her family. Will you write back? Yes, I think so. She folded the letter carefully. We could buy the Donovan place with that money. Expand proper. We? Unless you object to your wife having money. I object to you thinking you need permission. That earned him her rare, full smile. Clara Young immediately put food in Eliza's hands when they reached the barn, made her sit. The women had figured out her condition weeks ago, the way women did. The work continued all afternoon, Caleb up on beans with the men, Eliza below keeping tallies. Natural as breathing now, this partnership. When sun started dropping, Wilson called halt. Roof's on. Rest can wait. They gathered for supper in the yard, planks across sawhorses for tables. Amy Young sat pressed against Eliza's side, pestering her with questions about the law book she'd been reading. You'd make a fine lawyer, Eliza told her. Good as you? Better. You'll have proper schooling. Will you teach me until I'm old enough to go east? If your parents agree. Ben and Clara exchanged looks, nodded. Be good for her, Clara said. As darkness fell, neighbors departed one by one. Soon just Caleb and Eliza remained, standing before their new barn and dying light. Thank you, she said. For what? For this, all of it, for taking a chance on a stranger. You took the same chance. No. She turned to face him. You offered honesty. That wasn't chance. That was certainty. And you offered practical help. Is that what we're calling this? Her hand went to her belly. Feels like building something. Yes. She leaned into him. First time she'd done that without crisis driving it. Just leaning because she wanted to. They stood together as stars emerged. Tomorrow would bring more work. Always more work. The house to expand, crops to plant, cattle to tend, baby coming in winter. I never answered proper, she said into the darkness. What? Why I chose you from all those letters. You said because I was honest. That was part, but mostly, she pulled back to look at him. You said you were failing. Most men would lie, paint it pretty. You just said what was. My father lied to himself until too late. But you said, I'm failing and need help. And you came anyway. Because a man who admits failure might learn to succeed. Have I? She gestured at the barn, the clear creek, the healthy cattle. What do you think? I think we learned together. Yes. She took his hand, placed it where the baby moved. And we're not done learning. They walked to the house together. Inside, her ledgers waited on the table, tomorrow already mapped in neat columns. Coffee pot ready for morning. Everything with purpose. Everything in place. Caleb? That advertisement. You said you didn't drink over much. I don't. Good. Because I need you clear-headed when this baby comes. You've never needed anyone. No. She turned in his arms. But wanting isn't needing. I want you there. He kissed her then, slow and certain. No storm driving them, no crisis to survive. Just the two of them in their kitchen, building something worth keeping. When they broke apart, she moved to the window, looking out at their land in moonlight. Doesn't look like much yet, she said. Looks like everything to me. There'll be other troubles, drought, sickness, markets falling. We'll handle them. Together? No other way I'd want it. She smiled full and real. Good answer, Mr. Hart. Learning from the best, Mrs. Hart. Outside, a coyote called from the hills. The horses answered from the new barn, safe and sheltered. The ranch settled into sleep around them. The baby kicked again. Eliza winced, then laughed. Active tonight. Takes after its mother. Lord help us if it takes after us both.
Sounds right for a Texas rancher.
Yes, she agreed, looking out at their future. It does. The moon rose full, lighting everything silver. 3 months since the standoff. 7 months since she'd stepped off that train. No regrets? He asked. One, she said. His chest tightened. What? Should have brought 2 trunks. Baby things take space. The laugh caught him by surprise. She smiled, pleased. We'll buy what we need, he said. With what money? The trust from your grandmother. That's for ranch expansion. Ranch includes the family on it. Practical thinking, Mr. Hart. Learned from the best. They prepared for bed, moving around each other with practiced ease. No more barn sleeping, no more careful distance. Just them, building something lasting. As Eliza settled beside him, baby finally quiet, she said, Caleb? Yeah? That first morning, when you found me counting cattle in the barn, were you angry? No. Surprised. Maybe scared. Scared? You'd seen more in 3 hours than I'd seen in 3 years. Made me realize what I'd been missing. You weren't missing it, just needed different eyes. Your eyes. Yes. The word carried weight beyond its single syllable. Tomorrow would bring more work, but tonight they had this, quiet certainty of something built solid, tested by fire, proved true. Sleep, he said. Full day tomorrow. Every day's full now. Wouldn't want it different. She made that humming sound, agreement and contentment mixed. Soon, her breathing deepened. Caleb lay awake, listening to night sounds. 6 months ago, he'd been drowning on dry land. Now, he was building something to last. He thought about that first day, her stepping down from the train with straight spine and firm handshake. How she'd asked where the wagon was, no time wasted. How she'd seen his problems clear and started solving them unasked. Thank you, he whispered to the darkness. Eliza stirred, murmured his name, settled deeper into sleep. Outside, the creek ran clear toward the Gulf. Cattle lowed in the new barn, the sounds of a ranch, not just surviving, but thriving. Come morning, work would continue, but for now, Caleb Hart held his wife, his partner, and felt the future growing between them, strong as Texas limestone. In her sleep, Eliza smiled. Then, sharp in the quiet night, a sound that didn't belong. Horses. Many horses. Moving fast from town. Caleb sat up, reaching for the rifle. Eliza woke instant, alert. How many? She whispered. 6, maybe 8. They moved to the window together. In the moonlight, riders approached, but as they got closer, Caleb saw badges glinting. Federal marshals. And in the lead, Judge Morrison himself. Something's happened, Eliza said. They dressed quick, met the riders in the yard. Morrison's face was grim in the lamplight. Mrs. Hart, Mr. Hart, I apologize for the hour. What's wrong? Eliza asked. Henry Moore escaped federal prison 2 days ago. Garrett, too. They killed 2 guards. Morrison pulled out a telegram. This came an hour ago from Austin. They're heading here. Eliza's hand found Caleb's, not in fear, but in readiness. They're coming for us, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, but this time we'll be ready. Morrison gestured to his men. Federal protection until they're caught, however long it takes. Caleb felt Eliza's hand tighten on his. The baby moved between them, unaware of the danger returning to their door. How long until they get here? Caleb asked. Morrison looked toward the dark horizon. Could be tomorrow, could be tonight. He turned back to them. Either way, this ends now. Permanent-like. You know what struck me most about writing Caleb and Eliza's story? It wasn't their romance growing from practical necessity, Or even that desperate kiss in the flooding canyon. It was how the neighbors came together, pooling money for bail, Clara Young pulling off her wedding ring without hesitation, ranchers standing armed against corporate greed. That's how it really was in 1880s Texas. Your neighbors were your insurance, your law, your survival. When trouble came calling, you didn't face it alone. You faced it together. I wanted to capture that truth, how individual courage becomes community strength, how strangers become family through shared struggle. Eliza arrived expecting to fight alone, same as she'd always done. But Texas taught her different, taught them both. The real love story here isn't just between two people. It's between an entire community choosing to stand together against those who'd poison their water and steal their land. It's Wilson and Ben Young showing up without being asked. It's Clara offering her wedding ring to a woman she'd known a week. That's the West I wanted to honor. Not the myth of the lone gunslinger, but the reality of neighbors raising barns and babies together. This work of fiction is inspired by classic Western romance traditions created solely for entertainment purposes. The story does not condone, encourage, or promote any form of violence or harmful behavior. All characters and events are products of the author's imagination, and any resemblance to real people or events is purely coincidental.